The wind screamed like a wild beast across the frozen wasteland. Snow fell thick and heavy, burying everything in white silence. Jack Morgan, a lone human survivor on this alien planet, pushed forward with his fur-lined hood pulled tight and his boots crunching deep into the snow. He had come out here looking for fuel cells from an old crashed ship, not expecting to find anything alive, but then he stopped. His ears caught something strange. A sound barely there, softer than the wind. It wasn't the groan of metal or the howl of ice. It was a voice, a faint, desperate whisper, a cry. Jack froze, listening carefully. The sound came again, this time clearer. It was someone calling for help, buried under the snow. He dropped to his knees and started digging with his gloved hands. Cold bit through his fingers, but he didn't stop. After a few minutes, he saw something, pale blue skin, almost glowing against the white snow. A face, eyes half open, lips turning purple from the cold. It was a girl, an alien girl. Jack kept digging, faster now. Next to her, another hand appeared, another figure, smaller but also barely alive. Two girls, alien sisters, maybe, dressed in torn silver suits that did nothing to protect them from the cold. Their bodies were stiff, their fingers blue. Hey, stay with me," Jack said, his voice soft but urgent. He checked for breath, faint but still there, without wasting time. He lifted one girl over his shoulder and dragged the other by the arms. They were light, too light, like they hadn't eaten in days. His legs burned with every step, but he kept going. His cabin wasn't far, just another half-mile. He had to make it, for them. Snow whipped his face, and visibility dropped. He nearly slipped twice, but he didn't stop. The girls moaned weakly, their heads rolling back as he pulled them through the snow. Finally, the small metal shelter came into view. Half buried but still standing, he kicked open the door and dragged them inside. Heat blasted from the emergency generator. He laid them both on the heated floor and rushed to grab blankets. He covered them, lit the fire, and started rubbing their arms and legs to bring back circulation. One of the girls opened her eyes slowly. They were bright silver, like liquid light. She blinked at him, confused and scared. "Who?" She whispered. "Easy," Jack said. "You're safe now." She tried to sit up, but cried out in pain. "Don't move," he said gently. "You're half frozen." The other girl stirred too, groaning softly. They looked alike, sisters maybe. Same silver hair, same soft features, same strange glowing tattoos on their necks. He brought them warm water and soft food from his ration pack. They drank slowly, shivering but alive. Jack wrapped another blanket around them both and sat close. Outside, the storm howled like a monster that had just lost its prey. "You found us," the first girl said weakly. Jack nodded. "Barely. You were almost gone." She looked at her sister, who had fallen asleep again. "Thank you," she whispered. No one else would have come. Jack didn't know what to say. He just nodded and stayed close to the fire, watching over them as the hours passed. The warmth returned to their skin, color came back to their faces. The younger one murmured, in her sleep, calling a name, maybe his, maybe someone else's. The older one watched Jack carefully, her eyes full of something he didn't understand yet. Trust, hope, and maybe something deeper. Jack didn't ask questions. Not yet. He knew one thing: whoever left these girls out there didn't deserve them. And somehow, he had the feeling his quiet life on this frozen planet had just changed forever. He didn't save them for reward. He didn't even know why he had stopped. But now, they were here. And they were looking at him like he was something more than just a man in a warm coat. Something rare. Something worth staying for. The fire crackled softly as Jack watched over the two alien sisters. The small metal cabin, barely big enough for one, now held 3 souls. The storm outside still screamed like a beast, but inside, The warmth of the fire and the presence of life made it feel almost calm. The older girl sat up now, wrapped in blankets, her silver hair damp from melted snow. She kept her eyes on Jack, unsure if he was real or another dream. Jack poured her another cup of warm water and handed it to her gently. "Here, drink slowly," he said. She took it with shaking hands and sipped, never looking away from him. After a moment, she finally spoke, her voice soft and slow. "My name is Lyra." Jack gave her a small nod. "I'm Jack," he replied, "and your sister." Lyra looked to the sleeping girl beside her and brushed some wet strands of hair from her cheek. "Rena, she's younger than me," Lyra whispered. "We were left behind." Jack didn't ask questions. Not yet. He just placed another log into the fire and brought a small heating pad for Rena's hands. He had limited supplies, but he didn't care. He used everything he had to help them. Lyra stared at the fire for a while, then turned to him again. "You didn't have to save us," she said. "Most would have walked past. We're buried under the snow." Jack gave her a tired smile. "Well, I'm not most people," he said, "and I wasn't going to leave anyone to freeze." Her eyes softened, a strange mix of emotion in them. She looked around the small room. Barely enough space to lie down without bumping into something, but somehow it felt safe. It felt warmer than any place she had known in a long time. Jack prepared a thin soup with protein cubes and heated broth. He sat beside them and helped feed Rena when she woke briefly. The girl was weak, barely able to keep her eyes open, but she managed to whisper one word after drinking. "Warm?" Jack smiled. "Yeah, it's not much, but it's enough." He watched them closely through the night, checking their breathing, checking their pulse. When Rena started shaking from the cold again, Jack didn't hesitate. He took off his heavy jacket and wrapped it around her. Lyra gasped, "You'll freeze." Jack shrugged. "I've lived here long enough to handle a little cold." But the truth was, he was already shivering. Still, he didn't show it. The girls needed it more. He pulled an emergency thermal blanket around his shoulders and sat close to the fire. Staying awake, watching, protecting, Lyra kept watching him, every move he made, every gesture of kindness. She wasn't used to this nod from anyone. Her own people had abandoned her and Rena during a raid. They said 2 weak sisters were not worth saving, so they were cast out, left for the snow, left to die. But this human, this stranger, risked his own life to pull them out of the ice. Why? When Jack stepped outside the cabin briefly to check the wind direction, Lyra turned to her sister. Rena's eyes opened slightly, her lips trembling. "Is he one of the good ones?" she asked weakly. Lyra nodded slowly. "He's the first." Jack came back inside with his face red from windburn. "Storm's calming down," he said. "By morning, we might be able to look for more food or signal help." But Lyra looked afraid. "No, we can't contact anyone," she said quickly. "If they find us, they'll take us back." Jack looked confused. "Back where?" Lyra didn't answer right away. She just said, "Please, don't tell anyone we're here." "Not yet." Jack paused, then nodded. "All right, your secret's safe with me." Later that night, Lyra carefully stood and walked over to where Jack sat. She moved slowly, still recovering. She sat next to him by the fire, her blanket wrapped tightly around her. "I don't understand you," she said. "Why are you being kind? What do you want from us?" Jack looked surprised. "Nothing," he said simply. "You were dying. I had to help." Lyra's eyes glistened with emotion. "No one's ever helped us just to help." Jack looked into the fire, then softly said, "Then maybe it's time someone did." Lyra didn't say anything after that. She just sat quietly beside him. But her heart, once frozen like the snow outside, began to warm, not just from the fire, but from something new. Something she didn't understand yet, and as she looked at the human beside her, she whispered under her breath, "Maybe we were meant to find you." Morning came slow on the frozen alien world. Outside, snow still covered everything. But the storm had eased. The wind no longer screamed, just whispered cold secrets through the trees inside the cabin. Warmth still filled the air, but something else now warmed the space, something invisible, something soft, trust. Jack stirred a pot of soup near the fire while the sisters sat wrapped in blankets. Rena looked stronger now, sitting upright with sleepy eyes. She glanced at Jack, then whispered to Lyra, "Why is he doing all this?" Lyra's eyes were already watching the human carefully. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she said, "We should tell him." Jack noticed the shift in their expressions and sat down in front of them. "If you want to talk," he said. "Gently, I'm listening." The sisters looked at each other. Then Lyra spoke. "We are from the Thallarine tribe, far north of here," she began. "We used to live in the mountain settlements, protected by the old shields." Jack nodded, listening without interrupting. Lyra's voice was calm but heavy. "Last season, a new tribe attacked us. The Shackle, they raided our food storage. Destroyed the heaters." She paused, as if deciding whether to say the next part. "They offered a deal: surrender a few lives as tribute, or let the whole tribe starve." Jack's expression darkened. "They chose you, too." Lyra nodded. "We were considered weak, useless. Burdens." Rena's hands tightened around her blanket. "They said we had no value," she said softly. "So they left us far from the village. Told us not to return." Jack's jaw clenched. He couldn't understand how anyone could throw away their own people like that, especially to girls who had done nothing wrong. "You weren't weak," Jack said. "You were just betrayed." There was silence for a moment. Only the crackling of fire filled the space. Then Rena whispered, "We were going to die out there. We had accepted it. But then you came," Lyra added. "A stranger from another world, and you risked your life to save us." Jack looked down, a little uncomfortable. "I just did what anyone should do." "No," Lyra said firmly. "Most wouldn't have stopped. They would have walked past, or even laughed." She leaned forward slightly, her silver eyes glowing in the firelight. "But you carried us, gave us shelter, gave us warmth, gave us life again." Jack didn't know what to say. He never thought of himself as a hero. He had just followed his gut, his heart. He had seen 2 lives slipping away and couldn't let them disappear. "You don't owe me anything," he said quietly. "I don't expect payment or favors." Lyra smiled softly. "Good," she said, "because what we offer is not a payment, it's a choice." Jack blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Lyra and Rena looked at each other, then back at him. "In our culture," Lyra explained, "a life debt is sacred. But there's more. When someone saves your life from the cold and offers protection without demand, that person is seen as more than a savior." Jack's heart began to race a little. "What do you mean by more?" Rena, shy but sincere, answered. "It means we can choose him as our mate. If our hearts agree." Jack's eyes widened. "I wasn't expecting that," he said carefully. Lyra chuckled for the first time. "It doesn't have to happen now or ever. It's just, we wanted you to know." Outside, a gust of wind howled, shaking the cabin slightly, but inside, the fire burned bright. And the moment hung heavy with quiet emotion. Jack leaned back and took a breath. "I didn't save you for anything in return," he said. "But I'm not sending you back either." Rena smiled. "Then we'd like to stay." Lyra's eyes softened, her voice lower now. "We don't need fancy promises. Not yet. Just let us stay with you, protect us, and we'll protect you." Jack nodded slowly. "All right, then we're a team." Lyra whispered something in her native language and touched the mark on her neck. Rena did the same. A soft glow appeared for just a second, like the echo of a vow. Jack didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. They weren't just survivors now. They were bonded in a way no one else would ever understand. Not by blood, not by species, but by choice, by trust, and maybe one day. Something deeper. The storm outside had ended, but something new had begun. Something no one could take from them. Not the tribe, not the cold, not even time. They were no longer alone. The fire had burned low, casting soft orange light on the cabin walls. Outside, the snow had stopped, but the world was still frozen. Inside, the warmth wasn't just from the heater anymore. Something else now burned between the three of them. A quiet connection, unspoken yet stronger than anything they could explain. Jack sat on the edge of his bedroll, trying to fix a damaged communication device. He had been working for hours, hoping to repair the signal scanner so he could check for incoming ships or danger. But every now and then, his eyes drifted to the two girls curled near the fire. Lyra sat with her knees pulled up to her chest, her silver eyes watching Jack silently. She had been quiet since their talk earlier, her mind full of thoughts. Rena was asleep, her head resting on Lyra's side, breathing peacefully for the first time in days. Jack finally gave up on the device, letting out a sigh. He leaned back against the wall, wiped his hands, and looked at Lyra. "You should get some rest, too," he said softly. She didn't move. Instead, she whispered, "I've never seen anyone like you before." Jack blinked, unsure what she meant. "Like me?" She nodded slowly. "Someone who gives without asking anything. Someone who risks everything just to save strangers." Her voice cracked a little. "You're not like the others." Jack smiled gently. "I've made mistakes in my life, Lyra, more than you know. But if I can help someone, I do." He paused, then added, "That's all." Lyra looked down at her hands, her fingers still trembling slightly from the cold. Then, slowly, hesitantly, she reached across the small space between them and touched his hand. Her touch was light, unsure, but warm. Jack looked at her, surprised but calm. Her eyes lifted to meet his. "You saved us, but you also made us feel safe. Do you understand what that means to us?" Jack didn't speak. He just let her hold his hand for a moment. The silence said more than words ever could. Lyra's cheeks turned slightly pink, not from the cold, but from something else. "I've never touched a human before," she said softly, "but this doesn't feel strange." Jack's voice was low, steady. "You're not strange either. Not to me." She looked at him again, and in that moment, there was a calmness between them. Something fragile, something real. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something close, a beginning. Suddenly, a noise broke the quiet. A loud beeping, faint but growing. Jack jumped up and grabbed the scanner. The broken device was blinking red. That meant a nearby ship whore, a distress ping. Someone's in range, Jack muttered. Lyra stood quickly, alert. "Who is it?" Jack stared at the scanner, shaking his head. "I don't know yet. The signal's weak." He looked toward the small window, wiping the frost with his sleeve. Nothing but white hills and tall frozen trees. But Lyra was already pulling Rena gently awake. Her voice was soft but urgent. "Rena, get up. We may need to leave soon." Jack turned to them. "I don't want to panic you, but we need to be ready, in case it's not friendly." Lyra nodded, her face serious again. "If it's our tribe, they'll take us back and punish us." Jack clenched his jaw. "They won't take you from here, I promise." Rena sat up, still weak, but more alert than before. "What if they try to hurt him?" she asked, her voice small. Lyra looked at her sister, then back at Jack. "They won't," she said, "because I won't let them." She stood in front of him, her back straight, her body trembling, but her heart firm. "We may be weak, Jack, but we've chosen you, and if anyone comes to take us, they'll know we stand with you." Jack felt something shift in his chest. He had been alone for so long, wandering, surviving, fixing broken things, but now someone had chosen to stand beside him, not out of debt, not out of need, but because they wanted to. Lyra sat beside him again, brushing her silver hair behind her ear. She looked at his hand once more and took it gently. "You don't have to say anything now," she whispered, "but I needed you to know. You're not alone anymore." Jack nodded slowly. For once, he didn't feel like a stranger on a cold planet. He felt like he belonged. The scanner beeped again. Louder this time. Danger was coming, but Jack wasn't afraid. Not anymore, because now he had someone worth protecting, and maybe, just maybe, they were beginning to feel the same way too. The scanner's beeping grew faster, sharper. Jack stared at the flickering screen, its weak signal blinking red and orange. It wasn't just a passing ship. Whoever it was, they were close. Lyra stood frozen by the fire, her arms tightly wrapped. Around Rena, her eyes followed Jack's every move. "What does it mean?" she asked, though deep inside, she already knew. Jack took a deep breath and turned to them. "It means someone's landed nearby. Maybe a mile away, maybe less." He stepped over to a storage panel, opening it to reveal a hidden floor hatch. "We need to be ready. If they're here for you, we'll find another place to hide." Rena's face turned pale. "They'll take us back. They always do, even if it's by force." Lyra nodded slowly. "They won't forgive us for surviving. They'll punish us for leaving, for bonding with a human." Jack narrowed his eyes. "Let them try," he said calmly, but there was steel in his voice. Suddenly, a mechanical voice echoed from outside. It was distant, distorted by wind, but they could hear it clearly. "Unregistered beacon detected. Respond immediately or face consequences." Lyra's breath caught. "That's them. Thallarine Command Tribal Enforcers." Jack looked out. Through a narrow slit in the cabin wall, far off, blue lights glowed between the trees. A patrol ship had landed, and 3 armored figures were moving toward them, fast, armed, and not friendly looking. Jack turned to the sisters. "We can hide in the tunnel under the floor," he said quickly. "I'll stall them." But Lyra stepped forward. "No," she said firmly. "If you're caught helping us, they'll kill you." She looked into Jack's eyes, her voice trembling but sure. "We'll face them together." Jack wanted to argue, but something about her gaze made him stop. This wasn't the same frightened girl he found under the snow. This was someone stronger, now fierce, brave, willing to fight. The door shook as someone pounded on it. "Open up. This is Thallarine Enforcement. You are harboring fugitives." Jack stood in front of the door, but before he could open it, Lyra stepped beside him. Rena clutched her sister's hand, refusing to let go. Jack glanced at them one more time. "You sure about this?" Lyra nodded once. "If they want to take us, they'll have to hear us speak first." The door hissed open, cold air rushed in, and 3 tall figures stepped inside. Their armor was silver and marked with sharp symbols, their helmets reflecting. The firelight, the lead soldier pointed at the sisters. "You two are ordered to return for judgment. Your bond with this outsider is illegal." His voice was emotionless, like a machine, but Lyra stepped forward and raised her chin. "We are not property," she said clearly. "You left us to die." The soldier didn't flinch. "Your fate was chosen. Survival does not change the law." Jack stepped in. "They were left to freeze," he said coldly. "I saved their lives." The second soldier turned to him. "You interfered in Thallarine tribal justice. That is an offense punishable by death." Before Jack could react, Lyra shouted, "He is our mate now." The room went silent. Even the soldiers paused. Lyra's voice didn't shake. You abandoned us. But he protected us by ancient law. A bond of life made during near death must be honored. The third soldier looked at the others. They didn't move. Tribal customs were old. Sacred Devon, the harshest enforcers, didn't break those laws without fear of backlash. Jack whispered, Lyra, what did you just do? Lyra turned to him and took his hand. It's the only way to protect you, to protect Rena. They won't touch bonded mates, not unless they want war with the elders. Rena, still holding her sister's arm, nodded. We agree. He is ours now. The lead soldier lowered his weapon slowly, his voice stiff but forced to obey. You have claimed life bond. The claim must be honored. For now, he turned without another word. The other two followed. The door closed behind them, leaving only the wind and silence. Jack stood still, shocked. Lyra slowly let go of his hand, but didn't move away. I didn't mean to trap you, she said quietly, but I couldn't let them take you from us. Jack looked at the two sisters, their faces still pale from fear, but their eyes glowing with something else. Loyalty, courage, and strange hope. You didn't trap me, he said after a pause. You protected me. For the first time since the snowstorm, the cabin felt truly safe. The danger had passed at least 4, now, but the bond they shared had grown stronger than any law. And as Lyra leaned into his side and Rena curled back beside the fire, Jack knew something had changed. Not just their fate, but their future. The morning sun peeked weakly through the gray sky. The snow-covered trees shimmered as soft light touched their frozen tips. The world outside looked calm, almost peaceful, but inside Jack's mind, everything was still spinning. He sat quietly by the fire, staring into the flames beside him. Lyra stirred a hot drink and handed it to him with both hands. Rena sat close, watching him with wide, serious eyes. The cabin was quiet now, but tension still hung in the air like smoke. You didn't have to do that, Jack said finally, his voice low. Lyra tilted her head. Do what? Declare me your mate, he said. You could have gotten yourselves out without pulling me into it. Lyra shook her head slowly. No, we couldn't, she replied. If they had taken us, you would have been marked too as a violator of tribal exile. They would have punished you later, Rena added softly. We didn't protect you to trap you. We chose you because you chose us first. Jack looked at the two sisters, both now cleaner, warmer, alive. There was strength in their eyes, but also something gentle. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was connection. Before Jack could reply, a sound rumbled outside, the heavy thump of engines, the buzz of activated armor. Jack stood and looked through the cabin's frosted window. 3 more ships had landed. Larger, official-looking, their sides marked with royal crests and golden tribal insignias. Troops poured out, dozens of them. Heavily armed, moving fast, Jack turned to the girls. This doesn't look like a simple enforcement visit. Lyra's face turned pale. They've sent the royal emissary, she whispered, to verify the bond. Before Jack could ask what that meant, the door shook again. This time, mechanical voice spoke louder, clearer, by order of the Thalarine High Council. All parties involved in a tribal bond declaration must present themselves for verification. Rena gripped Lyra's hand tightly. We have to face them, Lyra said calmly. If we hide now, everything will be lost. Jack grabbed his jacket, pulled it on, and opened the door. Snow blew in sharply, stinging his cheeks. But the real chill came from the dozens of armored aliens standing outside. At the center was a tall, elegant figure in flowing silver robes. Her face was marked with blue lines of command, her eyes cold as frost. You are the human who claimed life bond, she asked sharply before Jack could answer. Lyra stepped forward. I am Lyra of the Exiled, she said clearly. This is my sister Rena. And yes, we chose him. He saved us from death. He protected us. We gave our bond in return. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The emissary narrowed her eyes. Proof. Lyra reached up and touched the glowing mark on her neck. Rena did the same. Then both turned to Jack. Lyra took his hand in front of everyone and placed it gently against her neck symbol. A soft glow pulsed, visible even through the cold. Air, an ancient bond symbol, shimmered between them, recognized by Thallarine law. Rena repeated the action, placing Jack's other hand to her own symbol. Gasps rippled through the group. A double claim, unheard of, unlawful yet sacred. The emissary stepped forward, her voice low but sharp. Two sisters have made a bond to a single human outsider. She paused. This is unprecedented. Lyra didn't flinch. Then let it be the first. She said, you left us to die, but this human gave us life again. Honor is not found in bloodlines, but in actions. Jack stood silent, letting her words speak for all of them. Rena added in a whisper, we are not begging for approval. We are declaring our truth. The emissary stepped back and looked at the gathered soldiers. Council law recognizes bonds formed under near-death protection, she said slowly, even when the protector is human. She turned to her guards. The claim is valid. No one moved. Then, slowly, the soldiers began to lower their weapons. The tension faded. One of them even gave a nod of respect to Jack. The emissary gave him one last long stare. You are now under the protection and the observation of the Thallarine. She said, if you harm them, the stars will not hide you. Jack nodded once. Understood. The squad began to pull back. The ships rose, one by one, disappearing into the sky, leaving behind only silence, snow, and a new future. Jack turned back to the sisters. Lyra was shaking, not from cold, but from everything that had just happened. He stepped forward, wrapped his arms around her. You didn't have to do all that, he whispered. She rested her head against his chest. But I wanted to, she said. You were our miracle. Now, will be yours. The snow had stopped falling days ago. The white sky had finally cleared, revealing twin suns shining weakly above the frozen hills. But in Jack's cabin, something else had changed. It was no longer just a shelter. It was home. Lyra sat by the window, quietly sewing together pieces of fabric to make new blankets. Her fingers moved carefully, each stitch full of quiet focus. Rena knelt beside the fire, feeding it tiny sticks, humming a soft tune from her childhood, and Jackie stood outside the cabin, looking at the land that once felt empty. Now, it felt alive. He took a deep breath and let the cold air fill his lungs. But it didn't feel as bitter anymore, because he wasn't alone. Not anymore, inside. Lyra looked up and saw him through the window. She smiled softly. A smile that once would have never existed on her face. Her heart, once frozen like the planet around them, now beat with warmth. Jack stepped back in, stamping snow off his boots. Rena rushed over, took his coat, and hung it by the heater. You always forget to warm your gloves first, she scolded gently. Jack chuckled. That's why I have you too. They all sat around the fire together, eating warm soup and sharing quiet stories. Lyra told Jack about her mother's cooking. Rena described how the stars looked from their village cliff before they were exiled, and he shared stories of Earth, of dogs, hot coffee, and sunsets over green trees. They listened like children, amazed. Earth sounded like a dream to them, a planet with color, music, laughter, and no snow biting your skin every day. Do you ever want to go back? Lyra asked suddenly. Jack looked into the fire for a moment before replying, I used to, every day, but now. He looked at her and Rena. I think I've already found what I was looking for. The sisters blushed, their alien markings glowing faintly under their cheeks. For a moment, none of them said anything. But the silence wasn't empty. It was full of understanding, of comfort, of something growing stronger each day. That night, Rena lit a small lantern and placed it. By the door? Why that one? Jack asked. It's a bonding tradition. Lyra explained, in our culture. When 3 lights burn in a cabin during nightfall, it means a family lives inside. Jack looked at the flickering lights of fire, the lantern, and a small glowing crystal Lyra kept on the table. 3 lights, he whispered, and smiled. Days turned into weeks. The snow began to melt in patches, and tiny green plants peeked through the icy ground. Jack built a small greenhouse from salvage parts. Lyra helped him fix broken pipes, while Rena painted symbols on the walls for luck and protection. Their life was still simple hard at times, but it was full of laughter, quiet mornings, warm dinners, and shared chores. Each one of them had lost everything once, but now they had found something better than survival. They had found each other one afternoon. As the sun set over the glowing snow, Lyra stepped out wearing a soft white robe. Her silver hair flowed in the wind, her glowing markings softly lit. Rena followed her, holding a piece of cloth and placing it over Jack's shoulders. Lyra stood in front of him and took his hands in our people's way. This would be the moment we choose our mate. Officially, she said gently, but I already chose you. The day you wrapped me in your coat and told me I was safe. Rena smiled and stepped beside her sister. I choose you too, she said, her voice trembling but steady. I may be young, but I know what my heart feels. Jack looked at them. Both 2 lives he had saved, and who had saved him right back. I don't know how this all works, he said with a smile, but if I get to stay with you, I'll learn. Lyra stepped forward, placing her forehead gently against his. Rena did the same on the other side. 3 hearts, 3 lives, 3 lights now, 1 family. The cold had taken so much from them, but the snow had also led them to each other, to warmth, to love, to a new beginning. And in a cabin no larger than a freight pod, surrounded by ice and silence, a human and 2 alien sisters built something eternal, a life not built on survival, but on love and choice.